Good evening, everyone. Give us a few minutes to get a few more participants in, and we shall start. Hi, good evening, Jared. Can you hear me? Try and unmute yourself, Jared.
Hi, Mr. Yusuf.
I can see you, and I can see
There we
everyone else.
go.
Okay, thank you.
I just can't chat.
Okay, I'll handle the chat for now. QA, are you on?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, can you make Mr. Gerard the full access please, so he can chat and share his camera and share his presentation as well, please?
Okay, we'll do that now.
Okay. Gerard, you can introduce yourself and get everyone warmed up.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I hope you're well. Thank you for coming out. It's a bit of a warmer evening, thank goodness. And for those of you who have joined already, and I'll do a proper introduction later, I am a business coach. I've been in the world of people development for the past 20 years. And I'm going to be taking you tonight through what some people call work-life balance and the time management side of that. But you'll see it's a little bit different. It's more like work-life integration with the way the world's changed. Okay, there's not too many people on, but for those of you who are on already, if you would like to ask any questions, make any comments during the session, please just raise your hand and you can be unmuted, and you're welcome to ask any questions at any point in time during the presentation. Okay, I think we'll just wait for everyone else to arrive and then we'll commence. Okay.
Gerard, can I suggest that whatever happens, we start at 7:05? We should have started at 7 anyway, but let's just wait. So in precisely a minute and a half, we can start, in fairness to those who join us. Okay, thank you.
Perfect. I'm just going to start sharing my screen.
For the rest of the participants, my name is Hussein. I'm with the Employability Unit at Regent, and Jared's our guest for this evening, and he was our guest last week when he did a very similar session with was it for the BCOM first year students, Jared? I think it was for the BCOM first year students.
That's correct, except there for study skills rather than work-life balance.
Correct. And next week is tomorrow evening. You've got a presentation as well.
Tomorrow.
So this evening is aimed at the BCOM second year students. And we've got 4 webinars for the year, 2 in the first semester, 2 in the second semester. They are planned usually on a weekday at 7 p.m. So hopefully you've settled in from your work, if you're coming from work, and you catch up with the session. Just some quick rules quickly, if I may. Jared is going to repeat this, but during the webinar, Mr. Shippel is going to ask a series of questions, 10 in total, and there's going to be a rubric that we are going to post that he's going to show you shortly on the screen. There's going to be a rubric against which you must answer. So on a piece of paper, make a note of the question and the score that you are giving to the question. So your answer will come in the form of a score 1 to 5, and at the end of the webinar, you will total up your score, and he will then guide us in terms of where you sit in terms of the rating, in terms of time management. He will repeat everything I'm telling you now, but I'm sort of trying to kill a minute or two, Jared.
It's all good.
I'm trying to kill a minute or two. But let's proceed. We can start officially. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Esau. And good evening again for those of you who've just arrived, and those of you who are still arriving, welcome. And I hope you enjoy this evening's talk. Just a quick one, what I told people a little bit earlier. If you would like to make any comments, if you would like to ask any questions, even if it's something pertaining to you, please just raise your hand. You're welcome to ask at any point in time. I really don't mind if there's interruptions. We will be on track. And without further ado, I will continue. The one thing though, when I'm sharing my screen, I cannot see anyone here. So Mr. Esau will be the person who takes any of your questions. Okay, I see that there's a lot going on in the chat already, but I'm going to start. So this evening, we're going to be talking about time management and how it relates to work-life balance, or what I prefer to call it work-life integration or work-life rhythm. And you'll see why a little bit later, why I try and steer clear of work-life balance, which I think is like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, simply because it's just so difficult to actually achieve. Okay. So during the course of this evening, we're going to go through a few practical tools. You may or may not have used these in one way or another, but these are used to help us build routines, to set priorities, to maximize productivity. And we're also going to talk about the causes and impact of work-life integration and how to maintain that. And I would encourage you to share if things are working for you, particularly. Please feel free to share, because you may just give solutions to other people who just kind of haven't got that click going. Okay, so I'm just going to start with a couple of little facts, the same as I did last week with the BCOM first years. And the challenge for anyone who's attending university, whether it be a top private university like Regent, whether it be a public university, and anywhere in the world, is that, well, 68% of first-year students struggle with time management, and it only gets harder as you move into second year, third year, and beyond. The average student in a first-year class juggles approximately 15 hours of classes with a minimum of 20 hours worth of study, and it's even more difficult if you're working at the same time. So the question is, how do you balance commitments? And
sorry,
it's
Jared, sorry to interfere. Sorry,
no
Jared, to interfere. We seem to be losing you every few seconds. Can you just check your connection, please, man?
Let me just double check that quickly.
Yeah, the sound quality is a little bit bad. Please, sorry.
Sure, I'm on full signal, so it's a bit strange. Can you still? Is it still breaking up a little bit?
It's sort of every 25th word, but let's try and we'll see
Okay.
what happens.
If it continues, I will connect via a different network. If that helps.
Okay, let's carry on for a minute or two, and if it's really bad, I'll call you. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So please just let me know. So how do we balance commitments, especially if you are if you have a family, if you are working at the same time as studying, which I'm sure that some or many of you are. And it's essential to balance your academic, your social, your personal commitments. And that balancing act is what is so difficult. And the time for constraints on that are what place us under pressure and stress. Just quick one on understanding your time, and then I'm going to ask you if there's any questions. But firstly, it's really important that you audit your own time. If you are able to conduct a personal time audit, see when you are spending time, how much time you are spending on different things. And usually we start with the things that are the easiest to and most predictable, like, well, I hope it's predictable. Things like sleep, things like exercise that you have, study time, and how much you plan on spending in your day, in your week, in your month, and over the course of the year. Once we have that sorted, you can start by identifying what are your time wasting activities, and you'll see we'll have a strategy and a technique in a while that will help you understand more easily how to go about identifying those time wasters. Okay. Ultimately, what these do is they drain your productivity. And then every person is different. We operate according to our own biological clock or circadian rhythms. Some of us prefer to work and study in the mornings, some in the afternoon, some early evenings, and some are late night owls. So you need to understand what are your peak productivity hours so you can schedule the most important and demanding tasks when you are at your peak, at your best. Do we have any questions so far? Anyone who would like to make any comments?
All good so far. Carry on.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Mr. Essoff mentioned that you will be completing 10 questions during the course of this evening. These are really important questions for yourself. You're not going to be tested on them. But what I would like you to do is really be as honest as possible in how you rate yourself according to these 10 questions, which will be interspersed throughout the talk. The lowest score would be if something is really true for you or you never do it, all the way up to a 5, which is that you always do it or almost always. It's almost always true for you. So if you can just take a moment, we will put this in the chat so that you can always refer back to it. And the first 3 questions I'd like to ask you, and we will cover these in the session this evening, are firstly, I prioritize tasks using a framework like the Eisenhower matrix, okay, which looks at urgency and importance. If you don't know about the Eisenhower matrix, but you do have any kind of prioritization tools that you use, that's also fine. If you've never heard of this and you don't use any prioritization tasks, it would pretty much be a 1. Okay. Question 2, I set smarter goals. So some of you may have heard of SMART goals. It's being specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. The second E, the E and the second R, I beg your pardon, sometimes are called evaluated and reviewed. I actually prefer to talk about them being ethical and rewarding. Do you add ethics into your goals that you set and the correct way of doing things? And do you reward yourself? And this would be for important projects. And then thirdly, I begin each day with a brief moment of mindfulness or intention setting. Okay. I'm just going to give you another couple of seconds before we continue. But please keep these questions and the number you've given yourself. There are another 7 questions that are going to come, and right at the very end of this evening, we are going to see how to score these, so that and to see what does that actually mean for you. Are you doing well in terms of time management and work-life balance and integration, or are you doing poorly? Okay.
So just to clarify, Jared, so people will answer question 1, 2, and 3 on a scale of 1 to 5. So if you've heard of the Eisenhower the principle, you can go back to the question, Nader. If you heard of the Eisenhower matrix, i.e., I rate things as urgent versus important, or a similar type of concept, then you will rate yourself as a 5 or a 4. If you haven't heard of it, if you just do things on the wing and as that happens, then you will rate yourself probably as a 1 or as a 2. And you'll answer similarly for question 2 and question 3. Keep the score aside. We just need the score right at the end. We don't need you to post the score as we're going along. And right at the end, we will ask you then to reveal your score if you're happy to reveal it.
Okay.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Essoff. Okay. So some of you may never have heard of the tools that we're talking about, and some of you may be using them all the time. So we're actually going to be going through some strategies for time management. We're trying to make this as practical for you guys as possible. We don't want you to be bombarded with tons and tons of theory that you're never going to use. So let's start with smarter principles. Okay. Now, just as a quick around the room, so to speak, how many of you actually use goal setting principles like SMART or smarter? If you can just indicate in the chat if you do. Okay. I'm going to be continuing, but please just let us know if you do use these sort of tools. So smarter principles are really about how do we set goals, and then how do we plan these in an action planning format. So I'm going to just take you through each of the elements, what they are, and how this then can have impact on work-life balance, on your studies, on the work that you do, and every other facet of your lives that you that you may want to use them in. So firstly, when we're setting goals, and just before that, I'm firmly of the belief that if you don't write down your goals, they're nothing more. They become nothing more than dreams. They tend to change. They lose their intentionality, if that makes sense. And also, we need to be ruthless in how specific we are. So the first principle is really we need to be very specific, define what it is that particular task should look like. Okay. The specificity of it should answer several questions. What do you want to accomplish? So let's say you are you're studying for your BCOM second year, and there's a particular piece of work that you need to cover. And forgive me, I don't know the syllabus, but if there's something that you need to cover that then that you want to complete, you need to be as specific as possible. You need to understand why it is important within the context of what you are doing. You also need to understand who is involved. So if it is just you, it's quite simple. You need to be the one to knuckle down and do the work. But there's syndicate work. It could be that in the work environment, whether it's now and you are employed and working, or if you're a full-time student who's going to be employed later, you do need to understand who covers which specific roles as well, which specific parts of the action plan. Where will it happen? And which resources or limits are involved? Do I have time limits? Do I have resource limits, financial limits, on whatever it may be? Perhaps there's only a limited amount of time available to you to be sitting in a library, because by the time you get there and the time you have to leave, get home or whatever, or there may be constraints. So those are just some of the examples. Then every single one of your goals needs to be measurable. You need to have a way of quantifying or qualifying what those objectives are. It doesn't always have to be numerical, okay? However, it does help. So if I need to get through X chapters of my financial mathematics textbook or my accounting textbook by this date, that would be a measurable goal, okay? And it has to be something that can be tracked and something that can be assessed, so that you know I'm ahead of the game, I'm behind, or I'm running par. with what needs to be done. Okay. Then is it achievable? I mean, you need to be realistic with yourself. You're not going to be able to understand the entire syllabus with unless you have a photographic memory, in a single day. It's just not going to happen. So it should be realistic. It should be attainable, and you should set goals that are just challenging but feasible. So just push yourself that little bit out of your comfort zone, given whatever resources and constraints you have within your environment. Okay. The fourth one is it relevant? So your goals should be relevant to your overall objectives. And you'll see we're going to be talking in a moment about something called OKRs, which are objectives and key results. And everything within your SMARTER principles speaks to the key results that we're going to talk about now. Okay, this needs to be aligned with your values and long-term plans as well. So if you, for example, are studying to become an accountant, and you have it planned, you're doing BCOM first year, BCOM second year, BCOM third year, you want to do your honors, you want to become a CA, there's a set plan. For interest's sake, you might want to do, I don't know, classical literature, but it's really not going to be able to get as relevant to the subject as I don't know, financial mathematics, accounting principles, financial reporting standards, those sort of things. So just be pretty ruthless as well, and very growth mindset, but goal driven in terms of the way that you decide to do things. That's a broader example. It can be drilled down for each and every single subject you take, each and every exam that you are working towards or project. Okay.
Darren, before you proceed, I think it's just worth looking at the comment, not commenting on it for now, but just looking at the comment from Quentin. Interesting. Just keep that in mind. Maybe I know you're going to answer it later, but just keep this scenario in mind.
Okay, sorry, I just want to double check. So it's from Quentin. I just want to read it. I prioritize as follows: work life, family life, pastoral responsibilities when in studies. The latter are weekdays. Weekends I sit with books, etc. Must cover 12 hours on a Saturday and 12 hours on a Sunday. Okay, I will come to it.
Yeah.
Yes. So Quentin, I'm just going to say one thing. We will come back to you, but you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself, and this is something you need to understand, that this is where work-life balance is so difficult. Sometimes we have to talk about work-life integration. I will explain the concept in more detail. I just want you to really pay attention to the fifth one, because everything is time-bound. Your goals have to be time-bound. You have to be ruthless with this. You have to set a specific amount of time in order to get through what you need. But there will be times where things happen, and you need to also have a level of flexibility. But the time-bound aspect is to make sure that you meet deadlines, to make sure that you reach responsibilities. And I really like the fact, Quentin, that you seem incredibly responsible, because there's several facets of your life that are so critically important. Okay. Again, then there's ethical. This is the sixth. Now, if you go look at textbooks, you'll find SMART principles. You won't really find SMARTER. It's something that I've done in my own coaching practice. Okay, and your goals need to be aligned with the principles that you live by. The principles of the university, the principles of the state, that are actually going to be upheld by the majority of people. Okay. So we're talking about things like fairness. We're talking about things that would be morally applicable to you, but ethics are not morals. Okay, and with along with the practice. And very, very important, find ways to reward yourself. As you reach your goals, how do you reward yourself? Is it with a little bit of free time? Are you the sort of person who's going to treat yourself to a walk in nature, or maybe a little bit of unwinding time with TV, whatever it may be? It is absolutely critical, because what this does is it rejuvenates you as well. Okay. Are there any more questions before I carry on to the Eisenhower matrix?
I think we should carry on.
Okay. Perfect. So I'm very happy for Mr. Essoff to make this presentation available for you guys as well, should you need it. And you will be able to contact me as well if you do need it. Now, hand in hand with the smarter principles, we have something called the Eisenhower matrix. And I think this really starts speaking to the question that Quinton has raised. Where do I find the time? I've got to put in 12 hours on a Saturday, got to put in 12 hours on a Sunday. But I've got my family, I've got my spirituality and my religion. I have other things as well. I have work-related issues. So we need to actually take stock of what is urgent and what is important. What is a little less urgent, what is a little less important. So quickly, just an around the room again, and I really would like you guys to reply. The first quadrant says that things that are urgent and important. The second quadrant is for things that are important but not as urgent. The third quadrant says that something is urgent but it's not important or less important. And the last one is when something is not important and not urgent. So my question to all of you is, which quadrant do you ideally want to be spending the majority of your time in? Is it quadrant 1? Is it quadrant 2? Is it quadrant 3? Or is it quadrant 4? So I'm just going to give you 20 seconds. And if you could please just start replying and letting me know what you think.
Okay, so I'll just repeat them. There's some 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2. Come on, guys. There's 60 of us on the group. I'm sure we can do better than that. 1, 2. In a second, I'm trying to let people in simultaneously. Forgive me.
That's all good. I see Pinky says 1. Christelle Miller says 2. Fiza says 2. Marshall 2. Annalene Pele 1. And Ayanda Ntuta 1. Arena Stoltz 2. Okay. The majority of you seem to be saying 2.
2, yeah, 2 seems to be the majority.
Okay, and a couple of you saying 1. So I'm really glad that none of you said 4, because that's exactly where we don't want to be. Those are our time wasters, and this is how we start identifying the time wasters in that audit we were talking about earlier. Okay, the green section, the less important but urgent, there we are being totally controlled by our time, and it's things that we need to do, but I don't specifically need to do them. There's other people who could do them, or there's other ways that they can be done. So I'm glad that you didn't say 3. Now, if something is urgent, it implies that it is time bound, but usually it is time that is imposed on you by someone or something else. Okay, when something is less urgent, there isn't that same time constraint. Okay, and what is so important here is that one of the critical factors that affects us from a stress level, and I'm going to be talking about tomorrow night, is when we do not have control of our time. we want to spend the majority of our time in quadrant 2, for the simple reason that that is a place where we are focusing on what is going to get us to that end result. In other words, what is important. But we are not being put under constant pressure. That first quadrant, the urgent and important, it's inevitable, it will happen, but we also refer to this as crisis mode. And often there are people who like to cram, and it works for them, but you should not be putting in probably more than 15 to 20% of your total time into that quadrant. You need to create strategies where you schedule things so that you are not feeling under pressure all the time, because a stressed mind does not take in information the same way as a calmer mind does. And if it's for longer periods, you can then start experiencing issues like burnout. Okay. Before we go on to the next questions, any other questions on the Eisenhower matrix? Okay. So we on to the fourth, fifth, and sixth questions from earlier. I would like to hear from you guys a bit later, but for now, you can put this down on paper using the exact same rubric that we did before on a scale of 1 to 5. Question 4, I can identify when I'm most productive during the day and schedule important tasks accordingly. Question 5, I successfully manage distractions and interruptions during focused work time. And question 6, I delegate tasks appropriately when possible, rather than trying to do everything myself. Okay, just remember that portion of the statement, when possible. Okay, just going to give you 5 more seconds for those of you who are busy thinking about it. And then we will carry on to the third technique that really pulls everything well, we're going to come to that, which pulls things together. But I want to talk to you about something first. So work-life balance is, as I said earlier, I personally feel it's almost like that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that you just can't reach. And the reason is because other things happen. So just some stats, 59% of employees, and this is worldwide, have considered quitting a job specifically because of a lack of balance between work and personal life. The interesting thing is, and this was from a recent study by Gallup that came out in June or July of this year, they call it the state of the global workforce. Sub-Saharan Africa, where we live, and well, it's our neighboring countries, that number is 75% of employees that are considering quitting the job, looking for something else, and that's quite alarming. We put ourselves under even more pressure, or we have to put ourselves under more pressure than Europe, Australasia, North America, and Asia. And there's 10 different regions. We are the worst in the world for that particular statistic. A significant portion of people also leave their jobs because of the poor work-life balance and the unhealthy work boundaries. And this is where a level of integrity, personal integrity, looking after yourself comes in, and developing those boundaries. Because if you are always at everyone else's beck and call, your studies are telling you that you've got to work 12 hours per day towards your studies, but you're working at the same time, and that might be 8 hours. Plus, there may be an hour commute potentially each way, could be less. That's already leaving you with only 2 hours for relaxation, sleep, maybe a bit of family time. That's not tenable. So you need to find the balance and create those boundaries. And you need to become the master or the mistress of your own time. Okay. And the lack of this work-life balance is a major contributor to job burnout, to academic burnout, to employee turnover, and, well, the burnout we're talking about can even lead to hospitalization as well. So it's absolutely critical. Basically, what I'm saying is you need to learn how to be kind to yourself, even if that makes you look selfish in some respects, because no one's going to look after you except yourself. Okay. So these are some of the impacts of a poor work-life integration. And I'll tell you why I use the word integration, and specifically at this point, is because that balance implies that I'm going to put in an equal amount of time towards my work and my studies that I'm going to put in towards my leisure time, my spiritual time, my religious time, my family, and myself. And that's not going to be feasible. Just remember, you also need to sleep. So the reality is that about 60, possibly even 70% of the average person's waking hours are spent with people who are not their family. It's spent with their academic colleagues or their work colleagues. And this integration may require that in one particular week, you have to absolutely smash the studies because you are falling behind, because you have deadlines imposed on you by your lecturers and your professors, and you have work deadlines as well that are outside of your control. But how do we integrate it without losing yourself? You need to be able to make up that time in a more flexible and fluid way than just saying, I'm going to have two scales and I'm going to balance it out equally. Okay. It's almost like a dance. And this is why I refer to it also as a work-life rhythm. How does it flow? How does it make you feel positive about what you're doing and give you enough time to rejuvenate yourself? If you can't get that right, you end up with things like burnout, fatigue, poorer job performance. Your career growth might be hindered or slow down. You may find that, well, I mean, this applies to one person, but you talk about higher turnover rates, but there we're talking about a whole lot of people. People will become disengaged. So we talk about employee disengagement, but we also talk about student disengagement. And something that a lot of people talk about in the workplace is also all too common in academic life, and that's called quiet quitting, where someone appears, but they're just not getting through the work. They're not doing well. They're just showing face because they're showing face. Okay. This stress and dissatisfaction being increased is a huge issue and very important. It also starts affecting one's personal life. So what we want to do is we want to try and take control of this. We start with simple tools like the SMARTER principles, like the Eisenhower matrix, but we can also use it with other people because we do not want unhealthy boundaries. So these are 6 of the main types of boundary issues that we tend to find. The one that really became prominent from the times of COVID, which we talk about in the past now, but it's still hitting us, is that, well, should people actually be working from home? Should we be learning from home? It's blurred the lines between personal and work life. One of the reasons that we like to ask and get as much out of you guys as well is because we've had situations where an individual is on the talk, on the work, on the masterclass, but at the same time they might be watching Netflix or scrolling through Facebook or trying to cook a meal. Yeah, and it's just not possible. We are not multitasking creatures. We can just shift our attention quickly. Okay. It also breaks down our communication. How many of you, and this is something just to ask yourselves, how many of you find that your communication skills are poorer, okay, or where communication has actually affected the way that you interact with other people? It creates greater levels of misunderstanding. It allows people to invade our space if we do not communicate properly, but we also need to understand how to communicate with other people. Okay, so the communication is about receiving information, but it's also about expressing that information. And how do we do that? And standing up for yourself in the process. The third one is something we call boundary permeability. So this is where things like work and academia start bleeding into our personal life. We become too flexible. You know, I'm supposed to be sitting down and maybe having a game night or spending time with my wife and children or my partner. And all of a sudden, you know, you get those phone calls that keep on coming in, 9, 10, 11 o'clock. I've even had cases where 2 o'clock in the morning, you're expected to answer the phone and then hop on an email and do what needs to be done. But the challenge here is is that it appears when people have different biological clocks, like we talked about. Then there's unrealistic expectations. Just remember, when we go back to the SMART principles, the SMARTer principles, is it achievable? Which also looks at if it's realistic. Now, employers or lecturers may set unrealistic deadlines or workload expectations. However, what I'd like to do is I'd like to challenge every single one of you, the more than 60 people who are on tonight, and say, do you put unrealistic expectations on yourself? Do you feel that you have to achieve so much, even though you still have 24 hours in a day? You're not going to get any more. Do you have the time to study 12 hours a day, then and work during the week? Have time for your family, have time for other leisure activities, and all of this. And if they are unrealistic, I'm not saying that you need to stop everything, but rather create firmer boundaries around what that looks like. I see there's a number of messages coming in. Some people are saying sometimes, yes, all the time. Okay, that's notando. Now, we need to really be very kind to ourselves here. And that goes with the fifth boundary, which is sometimes we just lack self-awareness. We just don't understand our own limits. Some of us underestimate ourselves, and we just don't push ourselves hard enough. And others think we Superman and Superwoman, you know, and you can't be a super person all the time. You're just human. And you need to understand what those boundaries are. You need to understand that you cannot overcommit yourself. But for me, the absolute critical one here, when we're looking for this holy grail of work-life balance, is sometimes we just don't get support from your lecturers, support from your family, support from your friends, support from your own syndicate group, learning group, or your study group. We need to be able to find that, and we need to be able to ask for that as well. And one of the key skills that is lacking today and doesn't matter what generation you're from, it's not specific to Generation Z or Gen X or millennials or baby boomers, is we are so scared to ask for assistance. If we don't understand something, in my last session, we talked about study skills, and one of the most critical study skills of a typical Harvard student is being prepared to ask. If they don't understand something, you need to understand it quicker. Go straight to your lecturer, go straight to your professor, go straight to your course coordinator or a colleague or whatever it may be. Okay? Now, if we pull all of this together and we take the SMARTER principles, the Eisenhower matrix, the boundary setting we've been talking about, we can fashion this into a really simple yet effective tool called the OKRs. We need to understand what our objectives are. And I've specifically left this one for last because everything builds towards it. Our objectives are very specific. It's what do we want to achieve? No more and no less. The key results are how we get there. What are the stepping stones? How do we benchmark and monitor how to get to those objectives? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a very simple table, rubric, whatever it is that you want to call it. And the objective is for you to complete these, okay? Take that extra little bit of time. But if we look at it this way, this is an example if I have one objective. Typically, the average person can handle between 3 and 5 objectives at any one point in time, but there could be multiple ways of multiple line items that need to be achieved to get to that objective. So be as ruthlessly specific as you can with whatever that objective is, and create a final due date. It can be as specific as you like as well. It doesn't just mean that it has to be done by the 15th of May. It could be by 12 o'clock, the 15th of May, that I need to have this done. Okay, now you start drilling down. I have, in this case, 5 key results, 5 key actions I need to take, 5 benchmarking activities that I need to follow in order to achieve that objective. And you can have 10, you can have 20. Okay. Each one of those should have a date and time, an estimated amount of time. So what we're doing effectively is personal project managing. And if it's something that can be done by someone else in a group, or you are, for example, you're studying and you have work constraints because you're working at the same time, is that something that you can delegate and you can get that person to complete it by X time as well? So this is how the 3 start working together quite cohesively. Okay. And I'm very open to you guys sending me emails, etc., if you wish, connecting on LinkedIn and asking if you're on the right track. Okay.
So there's some real good comments here. A lot of them are bordering on funny, but I think they're very almost desperate calls for help, But some good comments from people, sort of really understanding what the challenges are, and it may just be worth you trying to unpack that OKRs. By way of an example, and maybe the example ought to be somebody studying and trying to balance work-life balance. Maybe just give it as an example. I know that we've got less than 10 minutes. If you can do that in a minute or so.
Okay, I'm going to try. Okay, I just picked up from a lot of these that you guys are really drained. You have no energy. So let's set a very specific objective. How do I get my energy back? Okay, I need to get myself get to generate more energy. So key result one is I need to study more effectively for the upcoming test. And then let's drill down a little bit more. I need to spend X amount of time on this section one of the content that I need. I need to spend X amount of time on section two, X amount of time on section three. Key result four, I need to find time to go for a run, to get some exercise, to spend time meditating or just practicing some mindfulness, or could even be praying, whatever that may be, that then starts to rejuvenate you. Okay. And how you break that down as well is critical. But your objective is to complete everything with but remain healthy, both mentally and physically. Well, actually, I always like to look at it in four ways. If I want to remain healthy, I have to look at the mental, I have to look at my physical, I have to look at my emotional, and then I look at what I call purpose. For some people, that's religion. For some people, that might be something else. But what it ultimately is what gives me joy. What's going to drive me to the point where I can get my achieve my objective, but at the same time get there where in a happy place where I'm not drained. And you need to be setting time for that specifically. If I had a little bit more time, I could go into a more advanced sort of example and some other techniques. But unfortunately, we just have an hour. I did see something. There was one.
The example you gave I think, was very useful. Thanks for that. We can carry on now.
Okay. There was one question there. I'm a last minute person. Doesn't matter who you are. It just means that you are more tuned. I think that was Bandile who said that. Yeah, it was Bandile. So it just means that you are not scheduling as effectively, but also it may be something that is more effective for you. Okay. In order to achieve your work-life integration, you need to maintain a healthy lifestyle. Okay, I'm not talking about. I'm not going to be one of those to preach everything, but there are four key ways that you do this. Number one is you need to find ways to reduce your stress, whatever that may be. This will also help you enhance your job performance or your study performance and your results. Okay. You'll find that you have enhanced engagement as well. You connect better with other people. You connect better with yourself. And then ultimately, that enhances your overall well-being, and it becomes, instead of that vicious cycle of stress and strain and always being drained and just exhausted, fatigued, all of a sudden you'll find that you start becoming more energized by building in positive elements into what it is that you do. Okay. Last four questions, guys. The same rubric. I build small breaks into my schedule to maintain energy and focus. Question 8. I consciously assess how I spend my time, and I make adjustments to improve my productivity. Those may be incremental adjustments, but you are always consciously aware of how you spend your time. It is something that you don't take for granted. Number 9, I maintain a healthy balance between study tasks and self-care activities. Self-care activities do not have to be physical. They might be, but you remember, I look after my brain, I look after my body, I look after the more spiritual, purpose-driven side of my body, and I look after my emotions. And then number 10, I complete what I start rather than leaving multiple projects or assignments unfinished. I'm going to give you a few more seconds. We're going to have a short time for questions if you would like to ask, but I would like you to please add up what it is, what your scores are. And I'm happy to go a few minutes longer because we started a little bit later. Mr. Esau?
Yeah, that's in order. We'll end at 5 past if that's okay with everyone. We started at 5 past. We'll end at 5 past.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. I'd like you to add up all 10 of your scores for each question that you got. So the minimum score you can get is if you answered 1 for all 10, you would get a score of 10. And the maximum you can get is a score of 50. Okay. Once you've done that, I'm going to just go through what that actually means. Okay.
People can start posting their scores on the screen if they're comfortable to do that. It's not a must, but it will just give us an indication of where you are on the spectrum. Okay.
Okay.
29, 37. Nazira, did you say 10?
Nazira's at a 10, so 1 for everything. Quentin, 37. Okay. Irina, 29. Maria in Yamatanga, 17.
Hey, Nazira, how did you get a 6?
Nazira,
you can't give yourself a... Can't get a 6, Nazira.
Okay. Fiza, 35. Okay. Christelle, 20. Okay. Now, before I go into the scoring, I just want to let all of you know that there is no such thing as a right or a wrong answer. There's no, okay. It just means that you are working on it. Okay. Yoliswa, 12. Melanie, 18. So let's see what these actually mean. If you get a score between 10 and 20, it means that you're probably feeling quite overwhelmed. But if you start putting together simple tools like we've been going through, some of them are not so simple when you first start, but start by using the Eisenhower matrix or the SMARTER principles. Start creating a plan. Once you have that plan, it helps you set goals. Once you have goals, you know where you're going, and you'll see that feeling of being overwhelmed, of being drained, of being constantly fatigued will start to dissipate. Okay.
And Jared, if I can just come in. Sorry,
yes,
if I can just
please,
come in.
Please.
And just like some medicine, you won't feel the effect after the first tablet.
Absolutely.
So don't expect that I started prioritizing today and by next week it will be sorted out. It's a gradual process, especially if you're not disciplined, if you haven't been disciplined about it. So take a sort of a medium to long-term view to this. You only got 2 years more at Regent, so you got plenty of time. Said he with a wink, but just work with the time, and maybe over 30, 60, 90 days, you'll start seeing the effects of I'm planning better, I'm organizing better. So please, this is not a silver bullet. This is not a blue tablet of matrix where your problems are solved in one setting. Sorry, Gerard, you can carry on.
No, please. That was fantastic. That's exactly how you should be looking at this. You should always be a work in progress, even if you are what would be called a time management expert, and you know yourself well, and you're scoring anywhere between 41 and 50 points. There's always ways to improve. Okay, and this can be quite fluid as well because situations change, you change over time. Whatever you do, do not be harsh with yourself here because you'll start putting yourself under more pressure. Rather, what I like to say is, let's follow a process, what the Japanese call Kaizen. Okay, how can I be 1% better tomorrow at something than I was today? And it may sound like nothing, but imagine it the same way as compounding interest. You know, if I'm 1% better, and then I'm 1% on top of that 1%, and then and so on and so forth, you'll find that you start developing better skills, better habits. And once you develop those habits, it becomes a mindset as well. So a person who scores 21 to 30, I saw quite a few of you scored in that sort of range. A developing time manager, that's great. Just what you need to do is work on clearer priorities. Just start clarifying those. Was there a question?
No, no, all good so far.
Okay. Then from 31 to 40, now you're becoming quite effective. You're becoming quite proficient. Okay. But this is where the refining process takes place. Your ability to prioritize effectively and maintain focus should always be there, despite and will always be there despite distractions. Okay. I want you to also understand that some of you may be distracted, and I want you to watch out for this, by certain things. Some of you will be distracted by anything visual. Some of you may be distracted by things that are more sound-based, auditory. If you know this, purposefully and intentionally move yourself out of situations where you can be distracted. Okay, whether it be in the workplace, whether it be in your studies, whether it be in the personal aspect of your life as well. And finally, I'm not a fan of using the term expert because we're continuously developing. But a person who uses various skills and knows themselves really well will score between 41 to 50 and be able to get through a lot more in a shorter space of time because they know themselves, not because of circumstances. Okay. I would like to thank you guys. I hope you've gained a lot of value out of this. You are more than welcome to contact me. I've just put my my email address, my phone number, and you are welcome to connect to me on LinkedIn if that is something that you want to do. I write quite a lot about this, and most importantly, I'd really like to thank Mr. Essoff for giving me the opportunity to speak to you guys and hopefully impact on your lives in a number of facets, academically, work-related, personally, and I'm very happy if you ask some questions. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys can unmute yourself or type the questions. We've got maybe another 2 minutes for those of you who are happy to stay on for another 2 minutes or so.
I see.
Yeah, there's a hands up. Quentin, you can unmute yourself if you can and then ask the question, Quentin. I'm trying now. Carry on, Quentin. I've unmuted you. Carry on.
Yes, good evening, everybody. And thank you so much for this. And I think that many of us does need this because we have hectic lives. I feel it for the ones who basically who have little ones. Part of the goal was to start studying after my kids have all grown. So I allowed my kids to study first. My wife studied, and then now it's my turn to study. So you're listening now to a father, a husband, a grandfather, a priest. I've got so many daily challenges, and I'm up every morning at 3:30, put my wife into a transport by 10 to 5.
Sure.
I arrive at the office ready at 5:15. I take an hour just to sit with my books, and then thereafter it's going into, and I'm the head of supply chain and finance, and life is hectic in the public sector in terms of a hospital environment. You don't get a chance for anything when you maybe think you have 10 or 20 minutes to actually sit and go through some reading material or do some research while you're at work. It doesn't happen. Just to come back in terms of rewarding, one of my passions is to ride a motorcycle. So I travel with my bike every single day, and that gives me peace. That gives me joy. It gives me comfort. It allows me the freedom of the road, and it allows me better clearing of my mind. So by the time I get home, I do not have anything pertaining to work, because then I leave work at work. And then, as I said, I've got my pastoral duties at 6 o'clock at night. I'm out of the house again. Then I'm basically get home at about 9 o'clock. Then it's supper time. Then sit with the books, and then I go to bed at 12. Then up again. The routine starts again on the next following day. And I've already planned my week ahead. I've already got approved leave for Friday, so where I can take that full day on Friday to sit with my books. I've already planned when I'm gonna do the laundry. Sorry for Nazira, who said that she must do it. So yeah, at my house I do the laundry. But I've got a loving and supporting wife that supports me in this. So she gives me my support that I need, and she will always remind me and say, if you're not going out tonight, come sit with your books, you know. And every night I must make sure, because she gets home between 7:30 and 7:45 at night, I must make sure that she's in her correct transport, make sure she's safe at home, irrespective of where I am. So it does take a toll on each and every one of us that are on this platform at the moment. And where whatever support we are grateful and thankful for that region can provide to us, just to make life a bit easier. And tonight was very much informative. It was looking at oneself in terms of self-assessment. Where do you really find yourself? To be really honest with yourself, and what can you do? And in the fast-paced life that I am at work, there's certain tasks I cannot delegate because it resorts with me. And I'm not too sure if you heard about the austerity measures that the department suffered last year. So there's so many vacancies, posts are not being filled. One person must not do three people's work. And that is what we feel almost on a daily basis. So yes, so I don't really have a question, but more to say thank you to what region has brought forth to us. We really do appreciate it. And I want you to keep up the good work. And always, when you have the time, is to encourage the students, whether it's via email or whether it's via text or whatever the case may be, just to reach out to us also, and just to remind us that you guys are still there. It's not often that we would think of to contact region when we have a difficult moment, but maybe just for region, maybe just to reach us, for us to reach out to us as well, just to remind us that you guys are there. I know that the campus in Cape Town said we can come at any time when we want to use the reading material, etc. And the doors are always open, and that is welcoming for us. But then, like was said, we do not necessarily have the time to get to campus, because it's traveling. You must do this, you must do that. And even on a Saturday, it's worse. I get all my personal chores sorted out by 10 o'clock, and then 10 a.m. and then thereafter I then hit the books. So it's difficult for us to juggle, and I feel it for the others. So yeah,
Thank you very
so
much.
thank you for giving me the platform.
Yeah, no, I would love for you to have spoken so much more, but I think you've been really motivational as a fellow student to everyone else. But really, thank you for that. I'm just mindful that people are leaving, and I don't want to lose
Yes.
one or two last comments from Gerard. But thank you
Uh,
very much for that, Quentin.
yeah,
You keep on doing a good job at that.
thanks so much, Mr.
Thank
Esson.
you.
Thank you so much, Quentin. Quentin, but please, before anyone else, guys, there's one thing. So, Quentin, you're one of those like super achievers. You put a huge amount of pressure on yourself. There's one thing that I know that I noticed was glaringly missing. How are you getting enough sleep? You said you're studying until 12. You're up at 3:30. 3 to 3.5 hours a night might work for you, but it definitely won't work for everyone. Okay. So I just want you to try and maybe each of you take a little bit of introspection and see, am I getting enough sleep? One of the most interesting things that came out in terms of a recent productivity study is that we need to be able to take breaks, both that where we are asleep, because it rejuvenates our brain while we as well, and the subconscious. But we also need to have enough time during the day to have wakeful breaks, because that improves our productivity. They both are valuable, and you absolutely have to try and factor in sometime during the day, even if it's in small increments of 5 minutes at a time. Not the sleep. The sleep, you need to sleep a bit more regularly than that. But it's just something I would like you guys to please just try and factor in. Okay. Any more questions?
Thank you very much. No, I think we'll stop at that. So, Jared, you've got your email address. Expect 10,000 emails like last week. People don't abuse Mr. Shippel. He's doing this sort of on the house. He's not charging us for this, so don't take advantage of him. But as you can see, he's a humble enough person and willing to assist you to the best that he can. And guys, especially Nazira, when we meet, when you graduate, Nazira, when you walk over the stage, your words is going to be, it was all worth it. So just hang in there, and like the thousands of students who graduated before you, you are going to graduate as well. So just hang in there, fix a few small things, and you'll get to them. Shippel, thank you very much. I truly appreciate it. And everyone will be in touch in the second webinar sometime after May or June sometime. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.